Hey folks, Mark Levin here. Now, before we dive in today's episode, I want to talk about something truly valuable, protecting your financial future with gold. It's called diversification. Now, for that, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're the real deal with 5-star service and a sterling reputation. So give them a call today. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Trust me, you'll thank yourself in the future. Now let's get to the show. Results may vary. Consult with your financial professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I've been grinding my teeth to get behind this microphone, and I want to thank you all for being there. The media, the Democrat Party, the ruling class that runs this country will do anything to hold on to power. They don't care if Kamala Harris has the IQ of a walnut. They don't care if she flips and flops and flips again like a flounder on the ocean beach. They don't care. They lied about Biden and then pretended they didn't. Then they removed him when his numbers were unsustainable. Then you installed her without a single vote from an American citizen, without a single vote from a Democrat. The American media have done this before. They covered for Woodrow Wilson when he had a debilitating stroke and was utterly and completely dysfunctional, and his wife ran the country for a year and a half. They did the same when Franklin Roosevelt ran for his 4th unprecedented term like a dictator. They reported him to be in excellent health when he was dying from the moment the first vote was cast, and he died in office. They lied about John Kennedy's conditions. And they are lying to you right now. They lied about Joe Biden day in and day out, regardless of what you saw and what you heard. Because the media in America don't represent the American people. They represent a part of the population. They represent the Democrat Party base. They come from the Democrat Party base. George Stephanopoulos, Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, if that is her name, MSNBC, CNN are loaded with Democrat Party operatives and activists, the most radical Marxist Islamist professors and guests. They don't represent you, the American people. The New York Times, you expect them to print the truth? The New York Times lied about Stalin and the slaughter of the Ukrainians in 1932. The New York Times covered up the Holocaust until 1944, when most European Jews were already exterminated. The New York Times helped to install Castro, a mass-murdering genocidal communist who they portrayed as a small d Democrat. And now they all want you to believe that Kamala Harris isn't Kamala Harris. And so they pour their own opinions, their own objectives, their own ideologies into a vessel, into a woman who is not smart, into a woman who is unaccomplished, in a woman who shouldn't be anywhere close to the presidency, let alone the vice presidency, into a vice presidential candidate from Minnesota who's a pervert, who's a liar, who went AWOL. The American media are the Pravda media. Putin would be proud if he had such a state-run media. The American media are the Al Jazeera media of Qatar. Qatar would be proud if they had such a state-run media. The media in America have destroyed the entire notion of a free press. In recent decades, the corporatists, the massive global corporations, have taken over these news platforms. They don't serve America's interests by giving us the facts and letting us make the decisions. Again, the American media is not just the Democrat Party media, it's the Democrat Party base media. And the Democrat Party base is essentially populated by two types of people: low information voters and fanatics, that is, zealots. And they serve both their interests, if you follow them closely. Telling them lies, repeating them, big lies, like propagandists do in fascistic and Marxist autocratic regimes. You're not watching a small d democratic election for the most powerful office on the face of the earth. You're watching a dictator's election. This is a dictator's election, where the dictator, Kamala Harris, and the dictator's party, the Democrat Party, and the dictator's media, they put out positions, they put out talking points, they put out arguments, they put out statements, they repeat them again and again and again. They air them on television, they air them on radio, they run them in their newspapers and now on social media. They say the same thing, if not similar things. And conversely and simultaneously, they do what state-run media do. They do what Putin's media does. They do what Al Jazeera's media does, which is censor, smear, character assassinate the opposition. They've turned JD Vance into Kamala Harris and Kamala Harris into JD Vance. They've taken a man who really lifted himself up by his bootstraps out of the poorest kind of upbringing in Appalachia, who volunteered for the Marines after 9/11, who wound up at Yale Law School, who became a successful capitalist. The American dream, the American experiment in this one individual. And they've tried to destroy him, to turn him into some kind of racist while he's married to a brown woman, to turn him into some kind of a buffoon while he's got a very high IQ. And meanwhile, they turn the racist, bigot, anti-Semite, Kamala Harris, who is surrounded by anti-Semites, who is surrounded by Hamas supporters, who is surrounded by Islamists. I don't give a damn who she's married to, and I can present you with a list, who has said the most horrific blood libels against Jews, against the Israelis, who's helped trigger the terrorism that is taking place in the Middle East today, and the death of the hostages by her words, by her absence at a congressional event for the Prime Minister of Israel. They try to turn her into something she surely is not: a statesman, a thinker, an achiever, a leader. They tell you she wasn't border czar when she was. They repeat her positions. Now she opposes taxing tips when she was the 51st vote in the United States Senate to hire 87,000 new IRS agents for the purpose, in significant part, of going after all you waiters and waitresses, the hospitality people who they said you're not paying your taxes on your tips. You are targeted. We talked about it here a couple of years ago. She was the deciding vote. Biden signed the law. She comes out and says, I'm opposed to taxing tips. He comes out over the weekend and says, so am I. And the media play along. Why? Because they're not an American media. They're not a free press. They're the media of the Democrat Party base. They are trying to influence the low information voters and the zealots. They know it's a close election. They know it comes down to a handful of states. They don't give a crap about the 330 million Americans in this country. They are focused like a laser on 40, 50, 100, 120,000 people. That's it. That's it. Kamala Harris now says she's going to hire more border agents. Has she not been vice president for 4 years, America? Was she not the border czar? Now she says she wants to hire more border agents? She's the one who said she wants to defund ICE. Oh, no, you don't understand. Oh, okay. Now she says she wants to bring prices down. She's the one who supported the biggest, profligate, unbelievable spending in American history. Trillions of dollars in spending on the Inflation Reduction Act, the Biden-Harris Inflation Reduction Act, which was trillions of dollars to left-wing, climate change, degrowth groups. Now she tells you she wants to lower prices. No, she doesn't. How's she going to lower gasoline prices when she opposes gasoline? Oh, she doesn't oppose it anymore. You got that, Pennsylvania? You've got that, America? She wanted to shut down every fracking operation, every oil pipeline, every gas station, every gas pump. That was her position. She is now, today as I speak, supported by every radical, extremist, socialist, Marxist, anti-capitalist organization. But she says now she's for fracking. And the media say it's okay. Are we, the people, the progeny of the Revolutionary War, the progeny of Washington, Jefferson, Madison, and Franklin, the progeny of Lincoln, Reagan, the progeny of the greatest industrial might on the face of the earth, the progeny of the greatest founding document and constitution on the face of the earth? Are we going to allow ourselves to succumb to bald-faced lies, to people who will say anything and do anything and preach anything, depending on whom they're speaking to, depending on the moment, in order to seize control from you and me, in order to seize power, to confer it upon themselves and their friends, in order to prevent us from living prosperous lives and our children from living prosperous lives, telling us what kind of car we can drive, what kind of fan we can put in our house, what kind of light bulb we can put in our home, telling us the little things, the big things, and the middle things, telling us everything we must do? Are we gonna bend to this? This is a woman who has surrounded herself with people who hate America. This is a woman who has surrounded herself with people who hate capitalism. This is a woman who has surrounded herself with people who hate American citizenry. This is a woman who has surrounded herself with Soros prosecutors, with Islamists and Hamas supporters, with anti-Semites, with Iranian sympathizers. She just chose a Chi-Com, a communist Chinese special pleader to be her running mate, a pervert who doesn't believe mothers and fathers should decide what kind of genitalia their children can have if that child can get to his state in Minnesota, and you and I are supposed to stand here and believe he's some kind of a war hero, he's some kind of a moderate. It's time for joy. Don't you understand? Joy. Let him eat cake. Let him eat cake. It's not up to Donald Trump and JD Vance on their own. It's not up to the Republican National Committee on its own. It's not up to Fox and Conservative Talk Radio and other conservative outlets on their own. It's we the people. This is our damn country, and they're stealing it from us. They're stealing our children from us. They're destroying their futures. They're destroying the future of this country. The propagandists on TV, these filthy, poisonous, cancerous liars who call themselves Democrats. The contemptible media that uses the free press, that my ancestors fought for and your ancestors fought for, to advance an autocratic notion of what this country should be, to lie to the American people, to be demagogues and propagandists, day in friggin' day out. Are we going to succumb to this? I sure as hell hope not. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We're living in unprecedented times. Every day we're seeing new breaking news. In fact, we're seeing challenges like we've never seen before. So in times like these, you need a solid foundation for your finances. And that's where diversification and gold come in. Gold has always been one of the ultimate safe havens in times of turmoil. When it comes to gold, I only trust one company, Advantage Gold. They're a 5-star American company that I recommend to you. They're experts in precious metals and specialize in helping Americans protect their money with gold and silver. You can even use an existing retirement savings with zero fees. Call Advantage Gold today, 800-900-8000, and they'll send you a free gold investment kit to help you get started. Tell them Mark Levin sent you to see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. Help protect your wealth now with Advantage Gold. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Let's talk about some of this. Kamala Harris is for women's rights because she supports abortion on demand. Women's rights? Let me ask you a question. Is she not the vice president of the United States while they're destroying the entire women's sports? The whole entire women's sports. She and Biden, the only administration since 1972, the Education Act, amendment to the Civil Rights Act, destroying women's sports. She supports biological men competing with women. Does that sound like somebody who supports women? She chose a running mate who opposes mothers and fathers making the final decisions about their children's gender. Is that a woman's right? I ask you mothers. Is that okay with you? Because out of all the people Kamala Harris could have picked, she picked this pervert, this guy, Tampon Tim, who said, no. The state will decide what your kid's genitalia will be if we think the genitalia is wrong. What do you think about that, moms? Does that sound like a mother's right to you? I'm not done. I'll be right back. You know, we're living in strange times. All the news out there these days seems to be breaking news. The only thing that is certain is change. Regardless of the marketplace, and in these times of instability, many small investors turn to gold. It's been a bedrock of wealth preservation for millennia. And when I think of gold, I think of Advantage Gold. They're not just another precious metals company. They're true partners in helping Americans find financial stability. You know, Advantage Gold's experts get the relationship between politics and economics, and they can navigate you through these crazy times using gold to help shield your hard-earned wealth from the shockwaves of political upheaval. So call our friends at Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit. Help protect your wealth now with Advantage Gold. Again, 800-900-8000 for your free investment kit. And remember, tell them Mark Levin sent you to see if you qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Mark Levin, tough as hell.
That's why I like Mark Levin. And I'm not sure a lot of people like him. He's tough as hell. But I like him. I love him.
Call in now. 877-381-3811.
Do you think if Kamala Harris had this fantastic record, she'd be hiding from us? If you think she were smart, that she'd be hiding from us? Do you think if she could speak in complete sentences, she'd be hiding from us? You think if she had this fantastic experience and record as a DA and an attorney general and as a vice president, she'd be hiding from us? Do you think if she had the charisma of a great leader, she'd be hiding from us? She's a career politician who doesn't want to talk to us. And so she has to rely on the Svengalis. She has to rely on the low IQ so-called journalists. She has to rely on the Democrats dressed up as press people to spin for her. Because they can say anything and do anything. Of course, they're corporate masters. Have no problem with it whatsoever. She's running the campaign of a Putin, of a Xi, of an Un. She's running the campaign of a dictator, a pretend election, and a pretend democracy, with a pretend nomination, and a pretend convention, and a pretend free press. Just as we have the Potemkin Village courtroom in Manhattan, we now have the Potemkin Democrat Party Kamala Harris campaign. It's not really a campaign. It is funded by massive corporate media platforms through free media worth untold billions, and it is funded by Democrat Party multi-billionaire oligarchs who, in return for their money and their support in the election of Democrats, expect something in return from the new centralized, ubiquitous administrative state as its police powers and its tentacles reach further and further into the rest of our society. And they are rewarded with things like the Inflation Reduction Act. Trillions of dollars spent. We don't know where it goes, but it always seems to wind up in their pockets, doesn't it? And at the same time, they've learned from Mao. They've learned from Lenin. They've learned from the worst. Say the opposite of what you mean. You're for the little people when you're not. You're for redistributing wealth when you're for theft. You're for lowering prices when you're going to raise prices. Just keep saying it. We own the media, plus our Democrat Party billionaire oligarchs will fund it. Now, there's many areas to go into here. I started with one. Kamala Harris hates women. Excuse me? Kamala Harris hates women. How do I know this? I've grown up around a lot of strong women in my life. I'm going to tell you something I don't even think my family knows. My mother's mother, my grandmother Rose, she got married when she was 16 and was pregnant and lost her son, who was stillborn. Her second child was my mother, who she had at the age of 17, almost 18. And then she had a second daughter 2 years later. My grandfather would eventually leave her, and she raised her two daughters on her own, my mother and her sister. My mother was unbelievable. Unbelievable. And what did she do? My grandmother Rose. There were no child benefits. There was no food stamp program. There was no Medicaid. There was nothing. She opened a little pub down the street. Back then, you didn't need all kind of licenses to do all sorts of things. If you had a will to work, you worked. And for a while, that's what she did. She was never rich, but she would never allow herself to be poor. My mother got very ill when she was young. She was in her teens. And the doctor said they had to go to Florida. She needed to be in the hot weather. She sold everything she had. Didn't amount to much. She got up, and they moved from Philadelphia to Florida for a few years. They would eventually remarry. Or she did. I was raised by a strong mother and a strong father who took nothing from anybody. They never had a government job. They never wanted a government job. They started out with a little nursery school that they created with their own hands and their own minds. Then during the summer, they used it as a day camp. Eventually, they sold that, not for a lot. They opened a retail store in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania. The economy went bad. Times were tough for the whole family, but never, ever did we go without. They would never permit it. My parents were conservatives. They were Republicans. My mother would despise Kamala Harris. My mother would despise Nancy Pelosi. That whole mindset, that whole ilk that women can only achieve with the help of government, and that a woman was about and only about abortion. That's not how women are defined. That's not how good, strong, independent women define themselves, by abortion. They define themselves as human beings, a bigger life than the Democrats want you to believe, because they don't believe in truly independent women any more than they truly believe in truly independent men and truly independent human beings. They don't believe in individualism. Period. For women or men. My mother didn't believe in quote-unquote women's rights. She believed in human rights. She raised, with my father, 3 boys. Kamala Harris doesn't believe in women. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have done more to destroy women's opportunity in athletics than any duo in half a century. And they've imposed it illegally and unconstitutionally by reinterpreting a 1972 amendment to the Civil Rights Act, Title IX, that now defines equality is equity and includes men who identify as women. Completely destroying women's athletics for little girls and anybody else. Kamala Harris could have picked anybody she wanted as a running mate, anybody. She chose one of the most perverse, extremist, moronic kooks imaginable on 1,000 levels. Because he reinforces her immature, childish, but dangerous and vile ideology. She chose a running mate who signed into law the most extreme, more extreme than any other blue state, gender transition law in America, perhaps in the world, where parents don't have a say-so in what happens to their children if the state decides that the parents are interfering with the gender, they call them health choices, involving their children. I ask you mothers out there, I don't give a damn what party you're in. I ask you mothers out there, what happened to women's rights? Obviously, I'm a father and a grandfather. But there's something special about mothers. The government is now going to step into the shoes of a father and a mother and make a determination on whether their child is going to have gender reconstructive surgery or medicines to alter them physically without any recourse. That's who she picks as her running mate. I'll say it, nobody else will. I'll say it, nobody else will. That's the stuff of the Third Reich. And I say that as a Jew. Maybe there are occasions when it's necessary, but if a parent disagrees, the state takes prominence. And Kamala Harris says she stands for women's rights because she stands for abortion on demand. She supports Randy Weingarten and the AFT and the teachers' units deciding what is appropriate to teach your children rather than your mother and your father, rather than your parents. She doesn't believe in parental rights. She believes in Randy Weingarten's rights. She doesn't believe in parental rights. Last time I checked, we do have mothers in this country who are active in the raising of their children, who want to raise them a certain way, with a belief system, with values. This is the Communist Manifesto. This is Marx. But she supports women's rights, don't you know? As long as you don't get in the way of Randy Weingarten, the AFT. As long as you don't get in the way of Tim Walz and his laws. She's overseen Cora Bordazar. She doesn't deny being vice president, does she? She's overseen the worst open border atrocities ever committed against women, especially women of color, including rampant sex abuse and sex slavery in modern American history. She's the vice president. Now she decides she wants more border agents? Do you believe her? Of course not. Her base, her zealots, her media would never support her. They know she's a liar. She'll say anything. And they're going to help her. But she sat there and didn't lift a finger to fight the policies of her own regime and its impact on women and little girls, especially of color, like we've never seen in this country, ever. She didn't bend a finger because she hates women. She loves power at any cost, even if it means destroying the mother-daughter relationship, even if it means destroying little kids, even if it means rampant atrocities against women on our border. She'll spin it. Her billionaire donor oligarchs will run ads to spin it. Her media will spin it. As long as she runs around and talks about abortion, that's okay. Not by me. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We're living in unprecedented times. Every day we're seeing new breaking news. In fact, we're seeing challenges like we've never seen before. So in times like these, you need a solid foundation for your finances. And that's where diversification and gold come in. Gold has always been one of the ultimate safe havens in times of turmoil. When it comes to gold, I only trust one company, Advantage Gold. They're a 5-star American company that I recommend to you. They're experts in precious metals and specialize in helping Americans protect their money with gold and silver. You can even use an existing retirement savings with zero fees. Call Advantage Gold today, 800-900-8000, and they'll send you a free gold investment kit to help you get started. Tell them Mark Levin sent you to see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. Help protect your wealth now with Advantage Gold. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Kamala Harris has done nothing for women and girls in this country except harm them horribly. The next hour, I want to know what she's done for the black community as a DA, as an attorney general, and as vice president. Now, it's interesting. If I asked you to name 3 things off the top of your head, you couldn't. Particularly those of you who are listening to me who are black and live mostly in a black community. And we're also going to discuss a reckoning. A reckoning. Whether American Jews are going to abandon Israeli Jews and vote for an individual and a party that is now openly the voice of Hamas in Iran and anti-Semitism. Whether they're going to abandon the state of Israel, abandon the Jewish people for their party. This election is a reckoning for the American Jew. There's going to be plenty when we return. This I can promise you. Be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I have 20 hours of program in audio clips, articles, and so forth that I had prepared, Mr. Producer, with the audio, not one of which I've touched. I'm speaking to you from the heart, the soul, and the mind. I want to ask, in particular, poor families, and in particular minority families, how important is education to you? How important is education to improve the lot of your children? You see, it's my belief that parents want what's best for their children. It doesn't matter what race you are or anything else. You live for your children. You'll do anything for your children, anything. In the 1980s, there was a governor of Wisconsin, sort of a moderate Republican, who worked with a couple of conservative and libertarian legal groups, including a group called Landmark Legal Foundation. And Landmark Legal Foundation was representing a black delegate from the poorest area of Milwaukee, Polly Williams. What would a conservative legal group funded by conservative donors, a Republican governor, and a very liberal black delegate from the poorest part of Milwaukee have in common? Individualism. What? You see, ladies and gentlemen, every individual needs to be educated. It doesn't mean they have to be educated at Harvard or Yale. You got to be educated so you can function in a society that relies on the written word and the Declaration and the Constitution, the written word, a contract, the written word, a job application, the written word, even warnings on a ladder, to be distinguished from indoctrination and ideology. So there was a man who had an idea, and he wrote about it, I think it was 1958. His name was Milton Friedman, Dr. Milton Friedman. He was a libertarian economist, one of my great heroes. I got to meet him a few times, and rarely have I been so impressed with anybody. And he had many great ideas, and one of them was school choice. That the way to improve education, particularly for those in poor communities, especially for minorities, but people who are not necessarily minorities, but especially, will be school choice. And it took various forms, and there were various incarnations. But that is that the public school system is a Soviet-style education system. Now, what's fascinating about that, stick with me, this is important, please, is that John Dewey, who's considered the father of the modern-day public education system, literally went to the Soviet Union after the Russian Revolution, after Stalin took hold, and Stalin basically nationalized all these classrooms. And the goal was to teach everybody the same thing. Everybody was supposed to be for the best interests of the community. You know how it is. Taught the same thing, taught how to think. And so, it was basically a tool of the government. Our public education system was built upon that. The early progressive movement from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. The problem was and is that all schools aren't equal, and they're never going to be. But in poor communities, most teachers don't want to teach in poor communities. Most teachers, smartly, don't want to teach in a dangerous community. Most teachers don't want to confront that sort of thing. Also, when it comes to funding for many of these schools, the facilities are dilapidated. They're bug and rat infested. And so not the best of the best. You're getting the worst of the worst. And so in many respects, the kid doesn't have a shot. So my attitude has always been, I'm going to be 67. My attitude has always been, since I was 13, 14 years old, not equity. But if people have a shot, they're going to embrace this country. They're going to embrace this system. And it's going to make us stronger as a people. Not class warfare, not redistribution of wealth, not centralized government, not social engineers, not DEI and all the rest of it. You understand. And so the school choice movement didn't just happen 10 years ago or 3 years ago. We began litigating this at Landmark and some other groups almost 50 years ago, 45, 50 years ago. We were opposed by the Democrat Party because of the unions. We were opposed by the AFT and the NEA and their state affiliates. We were opposed by the vast majority of Democrats, including black Democrats in these communities, who relied on funding and campaign workers from these teachers' unions. Polly Williams was a heroine. She stood up to them and she asked us if we would represent her. We said, absolutely. And we, with some other groups, we litigated this issue because the allegation was that you can't use public school, quote-unquote, government funds to fund a private education or a parochial education or some alternative to the government schools. It took years to litigate this. Years. We litigated this to the Wisconsin, the Supreme Court, and went there twice. And we won. Not me, personally. Landmark and these other groups. Then it went to the U.S. Supreme Court, 2 cases. And we won. We won to make sure that poor kids can go to schools that are not necessarily down the street, but that their parents could have some say in where the money for that child will be spent. And there are different types of programs and so forth. We're still fought every step of the way by the AFT and the NEA. Every step of the way. Kamala Harris opposes school choice. Like Joe Biden, like every major Democrat in Washington, D.C. This has been the civil rights issue. You know, they talk about voter suppression. There is no voter suppression. You have the 1965 Civil Rights Act, which is often called the Voting Rights Act. Every citizen has an individual federal right of action, still, to challenge any effort to prevent them from voting. Every one. But there aren't many cases because it doesn't happen that often. But what is happening often is that the teachers' unions, the powerful Democrat politicians, the mayors, the city councilmen, and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, who always opposed to integrating our public schools, stand in the schoolhouse doorway. I wish people would focus less on her race and more on what she has done to people in minority and poorer communities. This is the civil rights issue of our time. I've said it for 20-some years on radio. Our fingerprints are all over this effort to break the stranglehold on education so poor kids can get educated too. Kamala Harris stands in the way. Tell me what she's done for the black community. Tell me. I want to know. Not what she says. She's had powerful positions. Powerful vice president. She's done nothing. Nothing of consequence. Nothing. Now, the Jewish community, since the Democrats break people, human beings, into race and religious groups and so forth, Kamala Harris has trafficked in the most horrendous, vile, cancerous, poisonous blood libels against Jews of any politician other than Omar and Tlaib. She has defended Tlaib. She has defended Omar. The running mate she chose, Tim Walz, supports and celebrates Omar, who represents Minneapolis, Minnesota. He has endorsed her. He has provided money to her campaign. Kamala Harris's staff, you can see the things I've been posting, includes some of the most grotesque Israel haters and Jew baiters you could possibly think of. Her pastor is a bigot, in my humble opinion, and yet she still remains close to him. I have a Chabad rabbi. If he was a bigot, he wouldn't be my Chabad rabbi. You choose your pastor. You choose your priest. You choose your rabbi. They don't choose you. She has, as her national security advisor, one of the most radical, extremist, in my opinion, Iranian regime special pleaders in our government, who comes out of the Obama administration. And she is surrounded by people like this. I don't care about what I'll call window dressing Jews. I'll make that line up, whatever it is. That is, I'm married to a Jewish man, or this guy over here. None of that matters. Black people get that. Hispanic people get that. Asian people get that. Everybody understands what I'm talking about. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is substance. Who are these people? What do they believe? She openly told a group just a few days ago, you heard it, that was saying boycott Israel because effectively they're slaughtering all these Palestinians. And she said she would talk about it. Tonight, as I speak to you, the people of Israel are surrounded. By well over 100 million Palestinians and Arabs. A country of 6.5 million Jews. A country of 13 million people. 10-1. They didn't pick a fight with Gaza and Hamas. They didn't pick a fight with Hezbollah. They didn't pick a fight with the Houthis. Barely even know who the hell they were. They didn't pick a fight with Iran. Iran seeks to eradicate the Jews of the Middle East, as Hitler sought to eradicate the Jews in Europe and then worldwide. As imams in this country, as certain faculty in this country, as certain organizations in this country seek to exterminate the Jews in the United States. No politician, none, should be playing footsie with people like this. I'm not talking about Muslims and Arabs. Zuhdi Jasser, a dear friend of mine, and by God, I wanted him to win that primary, and he lost by 3,000 votes in Arizona. Shame on you folks in Arizona. I am talking about radical Islamists. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. This country has suffered from it. People have lost sons and daughters in war and in buildings and in airplanes. Let's not play games. You know what I'm talking about. Kamala Harris plays footsie with these people. The United States has suffered grievously. The world has suffered grievously. I don't care if you're talking about Moscow or Berlin, and especially in the Middle East. And they're surrounded tonight. What has Kamala Harris said tonight about the Iranians? Nothing. What has she said tonight about Hezbollah? Nothing. What has she said tonight about the Houthis? Nothing. She just announced a new hire, another special pleader for Iran. I've got more. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk. The Muslim Brotherhood gave birth to Hamas. The Muslim Brotherhood gave birth to many of the terrorist organizations that seek to destroy the United States and the state of Israel. Hamas gave birth to a group called CAIR, C-A-I-R. CAIR has been involved in the protests as well as other organizations coordinated by Hamas, Iran, and Qatar, as well as these Democrat Party oligarchs with their money. Kamala Harris is close to CAIR. CAIR supports Kamala Harris openly. A number of these organizations do. She's very careful about how she speaks about the Islamists. She's openly vile and poisonous about how she speaks about the Israeli Jews, spewing the blood libel. And so I want to ask the Jews in this audience, are you going to stand for somebody who attacks your ancestral home, who gives at least aid and comfort in what she says to the people who want to attack them? I've got more on this when I return. I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk.
They can clone the others, but there's only one Mark Levin, and you can call him at 877-381-3811.
So American Jews have a reckoning this election. Are you going to vote for a candidate, Kamala Harris, who I think Israel will have a very difficult time surviving? Or are you going to vote for a candidate who's been the best friend of Israel? of any president since Israel's founding. Any. And I include Reagan, I include any. Trump. I mean, it's a black and white choice. It's so simple. And I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by Harris. Harris campaign taps Israeli-born former peace negotiator Elian Goldenberg as liaison to Jewish community, writes GTA News. Well, David Milstein, who served as a special assistant to the former ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, and who's my stepson, and who is brilliant and an expert on this, he says this article is missing a lot of important information regarding Goldberg's views on Israel. Here's just a few, okay? This is what I call a window-dressing Jew, which the Jew haters in the Democrat Party use all the time. Supported Obama's abstention of the anti-Israel Security Council resolution and carried shameful speech at the end of the Obama administration. Opposed the Trump administration's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, moving the embassy to Jerusalem consistent with U.S. law. Goldenberg said if these actions were taken, the U.S. should unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state, open an embassy for the Palestinians in Jerusalem, supporting the division of the ancestral Jewish capital. He opposed merging the U.S. consulate to the Palestinians in the U.S. embassy in Jerusalem. He opposed the U.S. recognition of Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights that has been critical to Israel's security as I speak right now. He supported the disastrous Iran nuclear deal. He opposed imposing maximum pressure sanctions on Iran like Trump did. And he supported rejoining the terrible deal, which would have ensured that Iran got a nuclear weapon, which it's getting now. He opposed the Taylor Force Act, which put an end to U.S. economic assistance to the Palestinian Authority for its use of pay-for-slave policies in support of terrorism. That act, Taylor Force, is named after an American West Point veteran who was murdered by a Palestinian terrorist. So he opposed putting an end to it. He supported restoring funding to UNRWA, which we now know is part of Hamas. He supported a, quote, political process that simultaneously pursues the reintegration of the West Bank and Gaza Strip and a long-term ceasefire between Israel. In other words, the surgical carving up of the state of Israel. Supported reopening the PLO mission in D.C. Was rightly closed because the PA had been supporting illegitimate anti-Israel actions in the International Criminal Court. And it goes on. He worked with the Biden and Harris administration, helping to implement some of the most anti-Israel policies in U.S. history, including opposing BDS through imposing baseless, illegitimate sanctions on Israelis. This is the individual that Kamala Harris has tapped as her contact with the Jewish community. Harris is out of the closet, folks. It's all over the internet if they haven't expunged all of it, as they have tried to expunge all of her videos. She despises the state of Israel. She embraces these self-hating Jews, and she embraces the Jew haters. And I say that with confidence. And I want to be quoted and recorded everywhere. And don't point to her husband or anything else. It does nothing to explain her conduct. Nothing. And so American Jews have a reckoning. You're going to vote for Donald Trump, who's been the best friend not only of Israeli Jews, American Jews. That executive order he signed is the only thing that stands before the Hitler Youth on college campuses and universities and those Jewish students who they were beating and chasing and forcing to lock themselves in their dorm rooms, the libraries, and the cafeterias. He did that. Not Obama. He did it. Not Biden. He did it. We shall see. And people have to know This isn't just a policy disagreement. This is a life and death disagreement. You're about to see a massive military action take place in the Middle East. We're not sure exactly what it is. And for those who might say, well, look, Biden sent the U.S. forces. We've had U.S. forces sitting there for months. There should be no U.S. forces. There should be no alert. There should be no war. And when Donald Trump was there was peace. All of this was ignited by Biden's foreign policy. All of this was ignited by Antony Blinken. All of it. Now, I talk to somebody who understands American history and modern Jewish history. The New York Times was owned by a left-wing Jewish family, Democrat Party family, Franklin Roosevelt supporting family that covered up the Holocaust at his request. The New York Times is no different today than it was in the 1930s and 40s. It's the same piece of trash. It's the same piece of filth. It hires the same frauds, phonies, fools, and self-haters. How anybody could work for a corporation like that is beyond belief. One other thing, then I want to move on. These reporters on all cable channels who keep talking about Israel hit this school that killed 80 Gazans. They've been saying this for 36 hours. According to the Hamas, health services. Now think about that. The Hamas health services. Hamas slaughters its own people, tortures its own people, beats its people, starves them to death, so we have a Hamas health services. That would be like having a Third Reich health services, according to the Third Reich health services. Now, the Israelis have said, no, we didn't. And when the Israelis make a mistake or do something that they're ashamed of, they admit it. Then Hamas health services said, wait, it was 40. The Israelis are literally giving the name of the terrorists they killed in that location. And the reporters from from Tel Aviv, on all cable channels, are still saying 80 people were killed by an Israeli attack. It's now commonplace to continue to regurgitate what the enemy says. Hamas. Can I ask people, you New Yorkers, not just Jews, all New Yorkers. Nobody's gotten over 9/11. Pennsylvanians. Central Pennsylvania. You haven't gotten over 9/11. Northern Virginia, the Pentagon. Did you ever think it was imaginable, conceivable, that we'd have a candidate who embraces CARE, a Hamas front group, who spews blood libels against Israel and the Jews, who has spent more time trashing the state of Israel and Netanyahu than Iran, than Hamas, than the Houthis or Hezbollah? Because that is Kamala Harris. You think she's capable of protecting us? You think she's really worried about securing the border and who's coming across the border? Does she act like it? Does she seem to be any sense of urgency as vice president and border czar? Admit she's not the border. Let's pretend she's not the border. She's the vice president. I want you to start thinking for yourselves, America. Don't let other people think for you. These people speaking to you on TV, looking at you in the face, they're nobodies. They're pissants. They're activists. They're nobody. They're nothing. Jake Tapper's a nobody. Dana Bash is a buffoon. All these commentators, who the hell are they? Why do you care? All these Democrat congressmen and senators who come up, they'll sell their mothers to get elected to office. They have no respect for you whatsoever. None. The same ones who lied about Biden, lied about Harris. They hate Trump because Trump is a historic, iconic figure. Trump is not George W. Bush. Trump is not Mitt Romney. Trump is not Mitch McConnell or John Cornyn or 1,000 other Republicans whose names you probably don't know, but dress the same way, cut their hair the same way, have that weird walk the same way, talk the same way, always careful about what comes out of their mouth, always worried about the press. Trump is like a presidential George Patton. George Patton was needed in his time. Donald Trump is needed in this time. We have never faced anything like this internally. Even the Civil War, it was clear who the good guys were, the bad guys were, the sides would line up. The Marxist Islamists have devoured our culture, so they control the instrumentalities of our society from within. The educational system, the bureaucracy, entertainment, most of the media. We've already been conquered in so many respects, devoured in so many respects. So they try and bankrupt them, put him in prison. They try and make you think he's weird or there's something wrong with him. While he's trying to protect you, your lifestyle, your property, your values, your children, the future of this country. Look how much he's sacrificed, this guy. Look at him. A billionaire's put everything on the line. Kamala Harris didn't put a damn thing on the line. She doesn't have anything to put on the line. She's a taker. Biden's a taker. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk. Okie dokie. The show's moving along very quickly. Well, the media. The media are not going to change for us. The media hate us. Remember, I call this state-run Pravda Al Jazeera media. Hamas is good, Israel's bad. Illegal aliens are good, American citizens are bad. MAGA, Make America Great Again, is like the Klan. The Marxist Islamists are like, what? The Red Cross, I guess. Not the hammer and the sickle. So it's all about their propaganda. That's what they do. Propaganda. They don't do news. If there's any news, it's used for propaganda. They do opinion. But it's not opinion based on news. It's opinion based on propaganda. Give you a perfect example. Here's a montage on how the media covered Tim Walz as the vice presidential nominee. This guy is a Chi-Com in my view. He's a pervert in my view. Cut one, go.
Midwestern dad, like super clean cut vibe.
Everybody likes
right?
Walz.
So plain spoken and relatable.
As moderate and independent as it comes. Pretty moderate Democrat.
I always knew him as a moderate. One of the most moderate.
Very moderate record.
The new moderate.
I think this is the new moderate.
Far from progressive.
He's right down the middle.
He's not just an old white man.
Tim Walz speaks American, you know.
Talks like a regular person.
Tim Walz is the opposite of weird.
Walz is basically younger Joe Biden. Regular old Joe out there.
Populist approach to
Play
fear.
right to the end, right to the break. This is what you call, ladies and gentlemen, you can lower it. This is what you call propaganda.
Ticket on the Democratic
You're getting it from all stations, except the few that don't believe in propaganda. You get it in the airwaves. You get it on the TV screen. You get it in the newspapers. Constant, repetitive propaganda. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. Mark Levin here. Our number 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Media propaganda. By the way, we're going to post the earlier part of the program. Those of you who heard it, I hope you will share it with as many people as you possibly can, as you know. And I'm hoping we do this more and more to get the word out. This is how you go over the heads, go under, go around the media propaganda operation. This is how you do it. Word of mouth. I mean, we have access to modern technology, too. A computer is modern technology. The ability to send a link by email or text is an incredible power that you have. And people are desperate to have the list of people you know. In 1,000 different ways they try and get it from you. But that's your list. Those are your family and friends, acquaintances, contacts, neighbors, co-workers. And I'm urging you, I'm encouraging you, that when we start to post more and more of these, and we're going to do it during the course of this election, as a way of trying to have a popular effort among the armies of millions who listen to this program and millions more through word of mouth, that is, through texting and emailing, sharing information. You've got to treat this like we're living in a dark autocratic regime where the media work for the regime. A dark autocratic regime where the media work for the regime. And we still have some ability to try and get around it. You know, they had tried to set up their disinformation board. They try and put the shoulder on social media, especially Twitter. Elon Musk is a hero. So this is the way. Look, we're the second biggest show in America. We just are. In my audience, I view you as the most loyal audience of any audience anywhere for anything. We have a special relationship. And by the way, there's an effort by a few to try and come between us. I know Soros bought some of the stations we're on. We're already hearing about that, and others who are making boneheaded decisions, but that's up to them. They can never come between you and me. And what I'm saying is I'm going to keep posting things like my opening this evening. We'll post that in a few minutes. And if you can just cut and paste that into your texts or your emails and send it around, it's not because of me. I don't get anything out of it. I swear to God, I don't get a thing out of it. What do I get out of it? Spread the word. That's what we get out of it. Spread the word. More example of a propaganda in America. Not a free press, not a media that seeks to inform. Propaganda. This is how the media covered JD Vance. These are from our friends at Grabian. Cut 2, go.
And JD Vance is weird, extreme, and angry.
Utter humorlessness and pompousness.
It's hard to believe that JD Vance could be any more extreme.
It's like a freak show of bros.
They have JD Vance, dark and ugly beneath the dignity of most politicians.
JD Vance.
JD is at the far extreme.
The most extreme. Being one of the most extreme. We need to recognize the danger.
Angry and mean and dark.
Cat lady hating sidekick JD Vance. This guy is really weird, y'all.
Everybody in America knows a JD Vance, but we stay away from him because he's weird.
Anger, chaos.
Hangdog ex-husband.
He was able to reach all the way down to a JD Vance.
And it goes on. So Kamala Harris is Mahatma Gandhi in a pantsuit. JD Vance is the worst human being you ever met. They don't even know this man. And he was on those Sunday shows, and he kicked every one of their asses, every one of their sanctimonious, low IQ butts. He took it to them. You know who else is unbelievable on these shows? Tom Cotton. Tom Cotton was fantastic. Now, after weeks of promoting Kamala Harris, now Kamala Harris has amazing momentum. Hat tip Newsbusters, cut 3, go.
Battleground momentum. New numbers showing the Harris-Walz ticket is gaining ground.
Vice President Harris gaining momentum.
Momentum in some key states.
This morning, Vice President Kamala Harris gaining momentum.
Gaining momentum.
But look, this momentum, keeping the momentum.
Harris's momentum.
You can't slow down the momentum.
This remarkable momentum.
Mission number 1 is create the momentum and then keep the momentum. What does momentum look like in the polls?
Kamala Harris is doing two things here. Number 1, momentum, and number 2, momentum. But take a look here. Clear momentum.
So momentum it is today.
Momentum it is.
Democrats ride a wave of momentum.
She does have that momentum. The Democrats are riding a wave of momentum, generating a kind of momentum.
The Harris team is going to want to keep this momentum.
Keep the momentum going.
They want to keep that momentum.
The momentum here is amazing. The crowds are literally insane.
This momentum, it just seems day in and day out to keep getting more powerful by the day.
The trend is heavily towards Harris, and it's rushing towards Harris in recent weeks. The vice president at this point throwing the equivalent of a no-hitter in the first 3 weeks of her campaign, hoping to keep that going with the Democratic convention next week.
Well, that guy's got his tights on a little tight, doesn't he? There's no juggernaut here, America. Look, we have to take this seriously, but what have I told you about the polls? But they want you to actually be so thoroughly dispirited. I believe I said last week, Michael Dukakis had a 17-point lead on George H.W. Bush this time during that election. 17 points. Real Clear Politics. Real great guy, I wish I remembered his name, who founded it, was on Fox a few hours back. And he said, actually, Donald Trump's position right now is better than it was 4 years ago. Tom Bevan, really good guy. Really good guy. No, I don't say that because we need to be Pollyannas. I said, because we well be behind. We better fight like we're behind. We better get our act together. We better stay focused on the issues. We better pound away because we're up against it. You see that they have billions of dollars in a propaganda operation from these massive corporate media platforms. And they're all one way. Every damn one of them. Every single one of them. The ones that covered up Biden are now covering up Harris. And when she finally does put out some points, it's fantastic. My God, now what's Trump going to do? John Carl on ABC's This Week. ABC has gotten horrendously poor. John Carl is adult. He's adult. He's a dumb guy. How do I know? I listened to him. He's a dumb guy. And here he is with JD Vance. They don't want to discuss the issues. They just want to go on the attack and demand that the Republicans respond to their attacks. That's it. It's like when Trump went to the National Association of Black Journalists. They didn't want to have a conversation. You did this, you did this, you did this, you did this, and when did you stop beating your wife? What? Now, keep something in mind when John Karl goes after Trump via Vance, that Joe Biden has been the racist and segregationist throughout his life, did horrible things that affected people in such a horrendously negative way, especially little black kids. So they would never say to Kamala Harris, why would you run with somebody like that? As a matter of fact, you're the one who pointed it out in the debate. Let's take a listen. Cut 16 go. This, by the way, this was all Sunday long. Harris is there slapping away at them like they're mosquitoes, because they are. Go ahead.
That dinner that Trump had, and of course it was Kanye West, the guy that's praised Hitler, who arranged it all. That was back a year and a half ago, and Trump still hasn't given a full-throated denouncement of this guy who said that terrible stuff, but he's a white supremacist.
Look, I think President Trump has issued plenty of condemnations on this. The one thing that the one thing I like about Donald Trump.
Stop. Yes, he has. And people are in there now on the internet say, yes, he did. So why didn't John Karl do his homework? If you're going to bring this up, why don't you do your homework? Joe Biden had more than lunch with George Wallace, with Herman Talmadge, with John Eastland, with John Stennis, with Robert Byrd. And why don't we ever talk about the Democrat Party itself and its stench of slavery and segregation and its stench of a history with eugenics and lynching, its stench. And Donald Trump didn't refuse to sign a federal anti-lynching bill like Franklin Roosevelt. You see how it works? They just keep at it. Like I say, it's called propaganda, propaganda, propaganda. Why not just ask a question? What is it that you guys want to do to improve the black community? Isn't that the kind of question that you want an answer to? Improve the educational system, the economic opportunities, business investment, safety and health and law enforcement. That's what people want to know. People don't even know who the hell Fuentes is. Doesn't matter. Remember what I said. They're playing to two groups. The Democrat Party base, which consists of the uninformed and the zealots. That's it. The uninformed and the zealots. Go ahead.
That he actually will talk to anybody, but just because you talk to somebody doesn't mean you endorse their views.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. They'll bring it up over and over. Like Charlottesville. They keep lying about Charlottesville. I was the first one, Mr. Producer, behind this microphone at this desk in this studio. Do you remember we went word for word for word for word what he said? Do you remember that? I took out the transcript, went through the text. It was so good that even the Five used it at one point and broke it down. Played the audio, read the text, say he didn't say what they said, and they keep it. Doesn't matter. It's the big lie. It's propaganda. It's repetition. That's what totalitarian regimes do, and they need a state-run media to do it. John Karl is as dumb as a pancake, and he's state-run media. That's what he does. He's written books hating Trump. There's no way he should be covering Trump. It's like Maggot Haberman. No way she should be covering Trump. They're incapable of it. Trump is the horse we have. He's the horse we ride. And there's not another person right now who could handle this. Not one. So here's my next question. Before the break, and then I'll continue it after the break. You ready for this, Mr. Producer? You ready for this, America? We have been told over and over again by staff that has resigned from Kamala Harris, whether she was DA, Attorney General, Vice President, on her campaigns. Serious people. They've taken to the newspapers. They've taken elsewhere. Some of them on the record, some of them off the record. They say she is horrendous, hellish, abusive, a yeller, and has the worst foul mouth they've ever heard. drops the F-bomb. Every other word. The F-bomb, screaming at people. Don't look in my eyes. That's evil. But you don't hear them talking about her that way, do you, Mr. Producer? Instead, it's John Carl. He had lunch with Fuentes. I remember when Al Sharpton was viewed as a bigot and an anti-Semite. Don't you remember that, America? And now he works for MSNBC. Of course he's not now. He's a journalist. We got that. You get my point? Now it's okay. He's cool. Oh, yeah, I remember those days. But what about her foul mouth? What about her personality? What about the way she treats people? Where are all the articles? They have the Maggie Habermans, the Maggot Haberman, I call her. Her only job, she gets paid, her only job is to get sources in the Trump circle and to write about them. Like she's some kind of a tabloid writer for the old National Enquirer. They don't have anybody doing that way on the Harris campaign. Why not? Where are all the stories? She's got to be screaming at the top of her lungs by now, yelling at people, using the F-bomb every other word. Where are the stories? It's the propaganda. They do it by repetition. They do it by censorship. That's the propaganda, censorship. Kamala's to be loved. She's joyous. She cackles. She laughs. She's something unbelievable. Trump is evil. He's the devil. He's dark. And JD's even worse. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I have a question for you, America. Had several tonight. We're going to send this program to Russia's Radio Hall of Fame exhibit, Mr. Producer. Why is it that the Iranians are trying to assassinate Donald Trump? Why is it that the Iranians had a cyber attack on the Trump campaign, JD Vance in particular? Why is it that the Iranians are trying to interfere with the Trump election and trying to kill him? Why is he the only candidate they're treating this way, Mr. Producer? Isn't that interesting? Why is it that the European Union warned Elon Musk and Trump that unless they ensure that only the truth is spoken during their interview, it will not be aired in Europe? Did you hear that one, Mr. Producer? And why is it that interview isn't being heard right now? Because of a massive DOS attack. I don't quite know what DOS means, but I know it is a critical attack on a website, isn't it? On a server. So you shut down the server. We had that done to our website, didn't we, Mr. Producer? And that went on it took us 3 days to undo it. So they do not want Donald Trump to be heard. They do not want Elon Musk's platform to be used. The Iranians do not want Donald Trump to win. They've already interfered in the election on behalf of Kamala Harris. They literally want to assassinate Donald Trump. And the media just frolicking along, spewing their propaganda, their lies. They're not even half-truths, they're non-truths. Which is why you've got to be smart, go around them, under them, above them, and we will win. I'll be right back.
You're listening to Denali, the Great One.
The Great One.
And you can call in now, 877-381-3811.
People say, is there anything you agree with, Kamala Harris? Not a damn thing. When I sit here and think about it, Most of you don't either. Border should be secure. Let's just talk the truth. She doesn't believe so. Illegal aliens should be punished, violating the law. She doesn't believe they're illegal. Israel's right. Hamas and the Islamists are wrong. She believes Israel is a perpetrator. And Hamas and the Islamists deserve to be heard. I want to say something about this situation in the Middle East right now. There's really two forces that are responsible for this. Obviously, Iran and the terrorist regime and its surrogates, and the Biden-Harris administration. The monstrous, genocidal bloodlust of the Islamo-Nazis, wherever they're located. Whatever view they take, whatever they call themselves, Hamas or the Houthis or Hezbollah, of course the mothership being Iran. These people want us dead. They struck us in the middle of New York, the middle of Pennsylvania, Northern Virginia, and they want to blow us away. And this administration has armed them with a nuclear weapon. Just a matter of minutes now. So number one, I blame them. Number two, I blame the Biden-Harris, Harris-Biden administration. This got out of control because they would not support Israel in the way they should have. And I don't mean with arms from time to time. I mean with whatever they needed and publicly. Publicly. When Israel was attacked during Yom Kippur, the so-called Yom Kippur War, President Richard Nixon, who the same media hate, I have a different view of him. I don't agree with a lot of his policies, but I also think the things that he did were nothing compared with what Franklin Roosevelt did, or what Woodrow Wilson did, or what John Kennedy did, or what Lyndon Johnson did. That for another day, although I've talked about it before. Nixon calls Kissinger into his office. He says, what do the Israelis need? And Kissinger says, we're moving this from Germany and doing this, that, and the other. And Nixon says, double it. And get it to them now in 24 hours, 48 hours. There's never been any conversation like that with Biden or Harris, with their Secretary of State. It's always been to control Israel, like Israel is some kind of a teenager out of control. Teenager out of control. For the next 1,000 years, they'll be writing about October 7th in Israel. For the next 5,000 years. And they'll be writing about these people in this administration. They don't understand the mind of the terrorists. They don't understand the mind, quite frankly, of the Islamists. They come in with a preposterous, bizarre ideology that involves appeasement and literally subsidizing your enemy. And it started with Obama. Obama laid the groundwork for this. The Obama nuclear deal. The Obama billions of dollars on the tarmac. Remember all this? Obama with Kerry attacking Israel at the United Nations. Obama treating Netanyahu with contempt and bigotry. Obama has Harris's ear. That's why Harris says the things she says and is surrounding herself with the worst kind of anti-Semite, Islamist, Iranian special pleader types of any administration in history. That's what she's done. I mean, it's an amazing thing. If a Republican were to surround himself with neo-Nazis and Klansmen, white supremacists, he would be condemned. And he should be. Loudly, repeatedly, aggressively. But they don't. Nonetheless, Kamala Harris surrounds herself with Islamists, with Hamas supporters, with Iranian special pleaders, and there's crickets. John Carl would never say to Kamala Harris, why do you have such Jew haters around you, such Israel haters around you? Does she need to hire Fuentes? Would that be persuasive? It's not enough that she hires these other people or takes their advice. It's not enough who her pastor is. None of this is enough. It's not enough. The Democrat Party has a whole wing of these kinds of people in Congress. By the way, this guy Van Hollen from Maryland, you Marylanders need to take a look at this guy. He's a lowlife. His wife is a lowlife. That's right, I said it. Equal rights. She's a lowlife, and he's a lowlife. And let me tell you something, you punk. You're more than welcome to come on this program or to come to a meet and greet. But the fact that they are in bed with Jew-hating extremists, and Jew-hating extremists are also American-hating extremists. They're the same thing. They always have been and they always will be. John Carl, George Stephanopoulos, Jake Tapper, Dana Bash. Dana Bash is the daughter of a rabbi. You know her name is Dana Schwartz, Mr. Producer? Did you know that? Dana Bash was the name of her first husband. No offense, isn't that kind of weird you keep the name of your first husband? She went on to marry the other guy at CNN, I forget his name. John King, I think it is. John King, yeah. So you wouldn't take John King's name or keep your maiden name? You keep the name of your first husband? I don't know, it's all so weird. The media weird, Hollywood's weird. Yeah, that's who she is. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But it is very strange, isn't it? That if you're a Jew hater of the left, if you are a Tlaib, an Omar, an AOC, and about 35 or 40 Democrats in Congress, or Dearbornistan, or these imams, or pastor, her pastor, you get a pass. You get a pass. The fact that Walz is tight with Omar, embraces her, takes photos with her, endorses her, helps fund her. They want to know about lunch with Fuentes. Who's a punk? He's a scuzz. He's a sleazeball. We all know that. It's not my point. They find this like one exception. Oh, and Kanye West. Nobody knew completely that Kanye West was what he is. He is what he is. But we do know about these other people, and they're elected members of Congress and the Senate, the House and the Senate. No problem there. It's okay. Democrats. Omar, Minneapolis. Tlaib, Detroit. AOC. What is she? Brooklyn, part of the Bronx, I guess? I like that guy, Richie, what's his name? He's pretty good. I forget his name. Torres, yeah. Doesn't like me, though. Won't come on, Didn't we ask him once? Or not? No? Maybe we ought to. I don't want to scare him, though, I should leave him alone. He's doing a good job. I'll leave him alone. But people like that. Why is it that they don't receive the same contempt as Fuentes should and does. Why is that? It's incredible to me. The Democrat Party is like an un-American party, or a non-American party, I guess. It's filled with all this, with all these racists and bigots and anti-Semites. And yet it claims to represent blacks and Jews and Asians and Hispanics. You know, here's the other thing. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, their administration, went all the way to the Supreme Court to support Harvard in their bigoted admissions policies against Asian students. In fact, Joe Biden trashed the Supreme Court majority that said this is discrimination. John Roberts wrote the opinion. Whether you like it or not, this is discrimination. This is exactly what we've said we shouldn't be doing to other human beings. Biden trashed it. Harris trashed it. And Harris runs around, oh, she's the great savior of minorities. No, she's not. She hasn't done anything for minorities or majorities or anybody else for that matter. Period. Or she wouldn't be hiding. She would tell us all about it. And she'd stand up and explain it to people. She won't even talk to a gushing press. That's what a fraud she is. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Here's Tim Walz in 2017 on 10-year-olds. Any of you have a 10-year-old, 9-year-old, 8-year-old? Cut 4, go.
Is one of those who gets politically charged, and I would ask all of us, and I try and do this for my own sanity, and I try and do it because I think it's the right thing to do, putting ourselves literally in the other people's shoes and wondering why they're doing what they're going to do. And when I think through this, when I say this as a teacher, there's about 150,000 of our children identified in our schools, in our public schools, trans students. And
hold on, 150,000, Mr. Baduz? This is sick. Go ahead.
My number one responsibility in the classroom is the safety, security, and belongingness of every single child in that classroom. And if this child, for those who have concern, and I will not minimize people's concerns who are concerned that this is going to make an unsafe situation, whatever, I ask you that in many cases, these are children my son's age, a 4th grader, a 10-year-old, who just wants to go to the bathroom, and their identity is they are male or female, and they just go in that bathroom and use it.
Yeah, that's all. You don't teach them. No. They're 10 years old. They say, you know what, I want to use it. Okay, that's fine. And then what if they decide more, that they want to be a girl? Well, in Tim Walz's America, a.k.a. Tim Walz's Minnesota, that begins an entire process for a 10-year-old. This guy is a putz. He's a clown. He's a nutcase. Let's not give sanctity, legitimacy, understanding, competence to this kind of sick thinking and political ideology. Because one day, the history books are going to point out the savagery of this generation in the mutilation of its children. One day, yet again, the Democrat Party will be pointed out for what it is, a horrendously inhumane party. I don't care how many programs they spend and how much money they spend. They're rotten to the core. We salute all you heroes out there. Stay strong. Don't be dispirited. Focus. Get active. And I'll see you tomorrow.